We're going to talk about congruent statements to start Unit 4 off. So basically, congruent triangles are triangles that are the same shape and the same size. Two triangles are congruent, okay, if and only if their corresponding parts are congruent. Okay, so we have what's called a congruent statement. It's a statement that two triangles are congruent, or two figures. It must be ordered. So the corresponding parts are in the same position. So we're going to talk about that right now. So I have two triangles here. I know all of the parts are congruent, all of the sides, all of the angles. So I know that those triangles are congruent, which means they're exactly the same. So for this here, if I said triangle ABC is congruent to, and this is this right here is a congruent statement. Okay. I know that angle A is congruent to angle W, so I know it's going to be triangle W. I'd have to start with W. Then my next letter is B, so here is B, this is congruent to X, so I know my next letter would be X. And then we have C, my last letter is C here, and C was congruent to Y, so W, X, Y. It would have to be in that order. Now you could still write this if you had, let's say, triangle BCA, well that would have been congruent to triangle XYW. Okay, or triangle CBA would be congruent to triangle YXW. But those corresponding parts have to be congruent to each other. Excuse me. So if I said, let's say, triangle RTV would have to be congruent to, well, RT, this side here, is congruent to UV. Okay, so I know it's going to be triangle UV and then S. Okay, and I can tell, okay, this side was congruent to this side, so yep, and then VS. And so that's just a statement of congruence. Next thing is CPCTC. This will come into play a little bit more. CPCTC stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles. Are triangles, GLES, are congruent. What that just basically means, if two triangles are congruent, all of their parts are congruent. Okay, and so we're going to look at this in practice right now. So I have a congruency statement. Cat is congruent to dog. So that tells me a few things. That tells me, because C and D are in the same spot, that angle C must be congruent to angle D. It tells me angle A must be congruent to angle O. And it also tells me angle T must be congruent to angle G. I can also say things about the sides. I know side CA, the first letter, second letter, must be congruent to side DO, first letter, second letter. I know that AT must be congruent to OG. And lastly, I know CT must be congruent to DG. Forwards or backwards. So that's it. That's all you need to really know about triangle congruency statements.